Throughout the biblical narrative, a mysterious figure emerges: Leviathan. Amidst the interpretations of today, a compelling question arises. Do dinosaurs roam the passages of Scripture? Or does Leviathan conceal a deeper truth? In a world shaped by modern perspectives and post-Enlightenment ideals, we often miss the intent of the biblical authors. We approach the Bible with a lens clouded by our contemporary understanding, unaware of the depth and complexity lying dormant within its pages. Today, we embark on a journey of rediscovery, a voyage into the ancient worldview of the biblical authors. Join us as we unveil the hidden treasures, the forgotten motifs that illuminate the biblical narrative. We will navigate through the depths of mythology, ancient Near Eastern studies, and linguistic nuances, unearthing the secrets that have been obscured by the passage of time. This is one of the many journeys to come that will transform our understanding of the Bible. Let us cast aside our modern lenses, open our hearts and minds, and embark on a quest for truth, embracing the ancient wisdom waiting to be rediscovered. Together, we will unravel the mysteries of Leviathan, and in doing so, unlock the profound depths of the biblical narrative, forever changing the way we perceive and engage with the biblical text. This is the journey of uncovering the ancient Near East's chaotic beast, Leviathan. Psalm 74, 13-14 reads, "It was you who split open the sea by your power. You broke the heads of the monster in the waters. It was you who crushed the heads of Leviathan and gave it as food to the creatures of the desert." In Job 41, we encounter the most detailed portrayal of this creature. According to the ESV translation, "Can you draw out Leviathan with a fish hook? Can you fill his skin with harpoons or his head with fishing spears? Around his teeth is terror. His back is made of rows of shields shut up closely as with a seal. His sneezings flash forth light, and his eyes are like the eyelids of the dawn. Out of his mouth go flaming torches, sparks of fire leap forth. Out of his nostrils comes forth smoke, as from a boiling pot and burning rushes. His breath kindles coals, and a flame comes forth from his mouth. Though the sword reaches him, it does not avail, nor the spear, the dart, or the javelin. He counts iron as straw and bronze as rotten wood. His underparts are like sharp potsherds. He spreads himself like a threshing sledge on a mire. He makes the deep boil like a pot. Behind him he leaves a shining wake. On earth there is not his like, a creature without fear. He is king over all the sons of pride." Many today seek to explain Leviathan as a mere creature of the animal kingdom, a creature from ancient times, a relic of bygone eras. They point to descriptions of fire and speculate about dinosaurs that can breathe fire, reptiles or crocodiles that may have fit the bill as well. While some speculate about fire-breathing dinosaurs or gigantic reptiles, there is a lingering sense that there's more to the story. Could there be a deeper, more profound truth waiting to be discovered? What secrets lie hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be unveiled? The objective of this video is to examine key passages from the Old Testament, including Psalm 74 and Job 41, and uncover the multifaceted portrayal of Leviathan. Rather than approaching these descriptions as literal accounts of a physical creature from the animal kingdom, we will explore the symbolic nature of Leviathan and its connection to ancient Near Eastern mythologies. Furthermore, we will draw upon the insights provided by Ugaritic and Babylonian texts, each offering unique perspectives on the ancient Near Eastern religious landscape. The Ugaritic texts, which bear linguistic similarities to Biblical Hebrew, will provide valuable context and shed light on the religious practices of the people of Ugarit. On the other hand, the Babylonian texts will offer additional mythological insights from distinct cultural traditions. Through this analysis, I aim to present a deeper and more profound understanding of the biblical narrative, which could possibly have implications on the divinity of Jesus and shed light on God's redemptive plan. By examining Leviathan within its cultural and theological context, we can appreciate the intricate layers of meaning and symbolism within the biblical text. Before we delve into the interpretation of the biblical data regarding Leviathan, I would like to make a preliminary clarification. In the realm of biblical interpretation, it is common for Christians today to exercise caution and skepticism towards new understandings. While I deeply appreciate this cautious approach, I must acknowledge that this perspective that I am about to present may indeed appear new to many Christians who currently hold the belief that Leviathan is a dinosaur or reptile. However, it is important to emphasize that the interpretation I will be presenting is not a novel invention. Rather, the claim here is that this is a rediscovery of the original intentions of the biblical authors when they addressed the concept of Leviathan. I invite you to approach this with an open mind, considering the possibility that our modern Christian perspective, shaped by Western influences, may overlook certain aspects of the Bible. By returning to the cognitive environment in which the text was produced in, we can uncover a deeper and more profound understanding of the biblical narrative, again, shedding light on God's redemptive plan and potentially emphasizing the divinity of Jesus. With that out of the way, let's get to the data. Our first clue in unveiling the true identity of this creature is a passage we already looked at in Psalm 74. Verse 14 reads, "You crushed the heads of Leviathan, and gave him for food to the inhabitants of the wilderness." The initial piece of evidence is often overlooked but bears significance. Pay attention to the plural usage of the word heads in this context. At this juncture, a crucial question arises. Are we confronted with multiple Leviathans, each possessing a single head? Or are we encountering a single Leviathan with multiple heads, resembling a Hydra-like creature? The phrase Rosh Leviathan, heads of Leviathan in Hebrew, holds the answer. The term head is in the plural form, and we know this by the Sira Yod, while the noun Leviathan remains singular without one. So Psalm 74:14 is most likely not talking about a dinosaur like Plesiosaurus or Mosasaurus, or any of the many other possible explanations people have brought up, like even the Nile crocodile. These things do not have multiple heads. If this is the case, then what exactly are we looking at? The significance of what we've discovered in Psalm 74:14 rears its head here. The Israelites were not the only people group in the ancient Near East who spoke of and described this monster. Leviathan is also found in other ancient civilizations north of Israel in Syria. Ugaritic, an ancient city located in present-day Syria, underwent excavation by archaeologists in the late 1920s. The significance of this find for biblical studies cannot be overstated, as Ugaritic's language is remarkably similar to Biblical Hebrew. Consequently, these two languages offer a wealth of mutual cognates, words with shared linguistic origins. The presence of Ugaritic Hebrew cognates has proven invaluable to biblical scholars due to the existence of over 1,000 unique Hebrew words in the Bible. These words either appear infrequently, have been fragmented by confused scribes, or contain letters with uncertain transmissions, which results in uncertain meanings. Following the discovery of Ugaritic materials, scholars could search through these texts to find counterparts to these Hebrew words. Consequently, they gained a more solid understanding of their meanings, which had eluded Christian and Jewish manuscript scholars for thousands of years. Beyond shedding light on previously obscure words, the Ugaritic texts have provided further insight to biblical scholars by offering a glimpse into the religious practices of the people of Ugarit. These individuals were adherents of Baal worship, the primary religion that the biblical authors fiercely opposed. As modern readers, acquiring a better understanding of the Bible's principal religious adversary enables us to appreciate its message more profoundly. Now that we understand why we should be looking at the Ugaritic texts, let's look at what scholars call the Chaos Dragon. In some of the poetry from the Ugaritic tablets, we find the mention of Leviathan. In their allusions to Leviathan, we find in the Bible. And before we look at this, it's worth noting that the Ugaritic passage is older than the biblical accounts. That does not mean that the Bible is based on the Ugaritic texts. That would be historically unlikely, and we'll cover more on that in another video. For now, I bring this up only so we can know that the Ugaritic text is not dependent on the biblical text. That being said, let's look at the text. The KTU is the standard source reference collection for the cuneiform texts of Ugarit. In it, we find the following passage. You smote Litanu, the fleeing serpent, annihilated the twisting serpent, the dominant one who has 7 heads. The first thing you'll notice is that the creature in the KTU has multiple heads, just like the creature in Psalm 74. However, a closer inspection of the serpent in the Ugaritic and biblical traditions reveal more similarities. Another important similarity between the two is that the consonants for the Ugaritic dragon, named Litanu, are contained within the consonants that comprise the word Leviathan. The much more important similarity, though, between the two arises when we look at Isaiah 27:1. It reads, "In that day Yahweh will punish Leviathan, the fleeing serpent, Leviathan, the twisting serpent, with his greatly fierce and mighty sword, and he will slay the dragon that is in the sea." If we put the two passages side by side, perhaps the similarities will be more obvious. They have mutually identifying titles like fleeing serpent and twisting serpent. What's more is this: according to Hebrew scholars, these terms are rare. This means that it isn't very likely that these arose by chance between the Ugaritic and Hebrew literature. Ugaritologist Ola Wikander says, "It is quite unthinkable that the combination of these two specific words should have arisen by chance both in Ugaritic and Hebrew literature, and so a historical connection must be postulated." Another scholar of Old Testament and Semitic languages, Richard E. Averbeck, says, "Leviathan is evident even in the English translations, but let's also consider the adjectives fleeing and twisted. The term translated as twisted is unique to this passage in Hebrew scripture, making it challenging to avoid the conclusion that it is a direct quote from the myth of Baal's battle with the sea monster, or possibly a common phrase. So the connection between Leviathan and the Ugaritic Litanu is rather clear. All the texts, Psalm 74, Isaiah 27, and the Ugaritic text, all depict a deity smiting the dragon. The biblical accounts claim Yahweh is the deity, while the Ugaritic texts claim it was Baal. If we go back to Psalm 74, 12 through 17, we see another clue. In this passage, God is smiting Leviathan as part of the creation account of the world, and establishing the sea and dry land. Yet God my King is from of old, working sustaining deeds in the midst of the earth. You divided by your strength the sea. You broke the heads of the sea monsters in the waters. You crushed the heads of Leviathan. You gave him for food to the inhabitants of the wilderness. You cleft open fountain and river. You dried ever-flowing streams. Yours is the day, yours also the night. You have set place, moon and sun. You have established all the boundaries of earth. You have fashioned summer and winter. If we take Leviathan to be a real thing from the animal kingdom, it presents an issue. If in Psalm 74 God defeats Leviathan at the creation of the world, how then in Isaiah 27 do we have that God will smite Leviathan, the fleeing serpent, the twisting serpent? More specifically, Isaiah uses the phrase, "in that day," signifying the end of days. In other words, if we take the reading in Psalm 74 that says that Leviathan is a member of the animal kingdom, we have a few issues. First being that we would need to explain why the creation account in Genesis doesn't mention any of this. And we would also be stuck with another weird question. Why did God have to fight a dinosaur or crocodile to create the world? Lastly, if taken literally, this results in a contradiction. God fights Leviathan at creation and destroys him, but he will also destroy him at the end of days. Personally, I don't think that the biblical authors contradicted themselves here. Rather, I think they're broadcasting a deeper message, which we'll unveil soon. Let's go back to Job. Job uses Leviathan in parallel with other dragons found in the Ugaritic material. The Hebrew names Tanin and Yam. These names are also used interchangeably with the name Rahab and the title Fleeing Serpent. Here are some examples that highlight the interchanging of these titles. Job 7:12. Am I Yam, or a Tanin, that you would set watch over me? Job 9:13. God won't withdraw his anger, The helpers of Rahab are humbled beneath him. Job 26:12-13. By his power he upheaved the sea. By his wisdom he smote Rahab. His hand pierced the fleeing serpent. In the last passage, Rahab is called by the same title Isaiah gives Leviathan and that the Ugaritic text gives Litanu, the fleeing serpent. It is also important to note that Job mentions Yam because in the Ugaritic text, the twisting serpent, Litanu, is also used in conjunction with both Yam and Tanin. Again, in the Ugaritic text we read, "Surely I destroyed Yam, beloved of El. Surely I made an end of River, the mighty God. Surely I lifted up the dragon of the two flames. I destroyed the twisting serpent, the tyrant with the 7 heads." And in the following passage, the tyrant with 7 heads is referred to as Litanu. Again, in the KTU, we read, "Though you smote Litan, the wriggling serpent, finished off the writhing serpent, encircler with the 7 heads." Furthermore, take notice of the fact that Job 41's description of Leviathan breathing fire fits neatly with the Ugaritic's Litanu, based off the title given to Litanu, Dragon of the Two Flames. What this means is that Yam, Litanu, Rahab, Tanin, and Leviathan are all overlapping names. The icing on the cake here is that we actually have ancient Near Eastern artifacts that depict 7-headed dragons breathing fire as they fight gods. We've seen so far that the biblical accounts and the Ugaritic accounts have associated this monster with the sea. After all, the title Yam means sea. But now a question arises. Why is God waging war against the sea in Isaiah 27:1, Job 26:12-13, and Psalm 74? We're almost to our answer. When we look at the Ugaritic text, Litanu was the god of the chaotic waters. In the account, Baal slays Litanu, and one of the gods yells, "Yam is indeed dead. Baal shall be king." This is important because Baal's victory over the sea showcased his kingship over the created realm. This gives us the context to understanding the very same kingship language we find in Psalm 74. For context, the opening of Psalm 74 is a description of how the Babylonians have just conquered Judah. Psalm 74, 1-11 reads, "O God, why have you rejected us forever? Why does your anger smolder against the sheep of your pasture? Remember the nation you purchased long ago, the people of your inheritance whom you redeemed, Mount Zion where you dwelt. Turn your steps toward these everlasting ruins. All of this destruction the enemy has brought on the sanctuary. Your foes roared in the place where you met with us. They set up their standards as signs. They behaved like men wielding axes to cut through a thicket of trees. They smashed all the carved paneling with their axes and hatchets. They burned your sanctuary to the ground. They defiled the dwelling place of your name. They said in their hearts, we will crush them completely. They burned every place where God was worshipped in the land. We are given no signs from God, no prophets are left, and none of us knows how long this will be. How long will the enemy mock you, God? Will the foe revile your name forever? Why do you hold back your hand, your right hand? Take it from the folds of your garment and destroy them." In verse 7, the psalmist laments the destruction of Yahweh's temple by pagan invaders during the exile in Babylon. The desolation and devastation experienced by the author's community are vividly expressed. Furthermore, verses 10-11 articulate the author's heartfelt plea for divine intervention and the longing for God's decisive action in response to the suffering and oppression. Following these expressions of anguish and yearning, the psalm takes a notable turn in verse 11. It introduces a new theme and presents a series of verses that demand our careful attention. Psalm 74, 12-17 again reads, "But God is my king from long ago. He brings salvation on the earth. It was you who split open the sea by your power. You broke the heads of the monsters in the waters. It was you who crushed the heads of Leviathan and gave it as food to the creatures of the desert. It was you who opened up springs and streams. You dried up the ever-flowing rivers. The day is yours, and yours also the night. You established the sun and moon. It was you who set all the boundaries of the earth. You made both summer and winter. So we see the same character in this passage, but this time its importance is because of parallels to the Babylonian creation account. It is worth noting that during the mid-19th century, the landscape of biblical studies underwent a transformative shift when archaeologists unearthed clay tablets in ancient Nineveh containing the Babylonian creation narrative known as the Enuma Elish, or the Epic of Creation. This ancient text recounts the ascension of Marduk, the king of the Babylonian pantheon, to his throne. In this account, Marduk engages in a momentous battle against a primordial chaos dragon known as Tiamat, representing the watery forces of chaos. The fourth tablet of the Enuma Elish provides the details of this cosmic clash. Then advanced Tiamat and Marduk, the counselor of the gods. To fight they came on, to the battle they drew nigh. Then the battle is described as we read. The Lord spread out his net and caught her, and the evil wind that was behind him he let loose in her face. As Tiamat opened her mouth to its full extent, he drove in the evil wind, while as yet she had not shut her lips. The terrible winds filled her belly, and her courage was taken from her, and her mouth she opened wide. He seized the spear and burst her belly. He severed her inward parts, he pierced her heart, he overcame her and cut off her life. Then, after we read about Marduk defeating Tiamat, we read the following. And the Lord stood upon Tiamat's hinder parts, and with his merciless club he smashed her skull. He cut through the channels of her blood, and he made the north wind bear it away into secret places. His fathers beheld, and they rejoiced and were glad. Presents and gifts they brought unto him. Then the Lord rested gazing upon her dead body, while he divided the flesh, and devised a cunning plan. He split her up like a flat fish in two halves. One half of her he established as a covering for heaven. He fixed a bolt, he stationed a watchman, and bade them not to let her waters come forth. He passed through the heavens, he surveyed the regions thereof, and over against the deep he set the dwelling of Nudimud. The Lord measured the structure of the deep, and he found it, Sarah, a mansion like unto it. The mansion, Sarah, which he created as heaven, he caused Anu, Bel, and Ea in their districts to inhabit. So according to this ancient account, Marduk cleaved Tiamat's body into two parts. He employs one half to fashion the expanse of the sky, and molds the other half into the foundation of the earth. Tiamat's saliva transforms into billowing clouds, while her severed head becomes a majestic mountain. From her eye sockets emerge the rivers of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, which hold immense significance in the ancient Mesopotamian world. These details highlight the intricate interplay between the mythical elements and the formation of the natural world in this Babylonian narrative. To further help us understand this point, we can extract another point from Job 41:2. In this, Job asks, "Can you put a cord through Leviathan's nose or pierce his jaw with a hook?" Related to the kingship language, we can now make sense of this passage because a common motif in Mesopotamian art for gods that wage battle against the chaos dragon is to show the deity standing on top of these defeated enemies who come to represent aspects of the god's power. Here are some examples of the depictions. The left picture is from a Babylonian cylinder seal showing Marduk standing over a pedestal, symbolizing the defeated sea and its associated chaos dragon. The right picture depicts a cylinder seal engraving of the god Adad, with the tamed chaos dragons leashed through what seems to be the mouth or nose. One last point we can make to tie this all together is done by looking at the Babylonian account and then comparing it to what Genesis 1 records. Genesis 1:2 says, "Now the earth was formless and empty, darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters." Now that we're able to recognize chaos imagery, this casts a new light on this very familiar narrative in the Bible, especially once we read on. Genesis 1:6-7 reads, "And God said, Let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters. And God made the expanse and separated the waters that were under the expanse from the waters that were above the expanse, and it was so. The waters mentioned here are the Hebrew word tehom, or the deep, mentioned in Genesis 1:2. This word tehom is linguistically related to the Babylonian word Tiamat, the chaos dragon. Now, jump back to Psalm 74:13-14. You divided the sea by your might. You broke the heads of the sea monsters on the waters. You crushed the heads of Leviathan. You gave him as food for the creatures of the wilderness. And in verse 16, yours is the day, yours is also the night. You have established the heavenly lights in the sun. Recall that this particular section of the psalm reflects on the creation narrative. Within these verses, we witness God's triumph over the sea monsters through the act of dividing the waters. This raises a crucial question. Why does Psalm 74 explicitly mention the sea monsters while the Genesis account does not? Furthermore, what is the significance of the biblical authors utilizing these motifs? The answer becomes evident when we carefully consider the broader context and draw connections between various passages and cultural influences. By examining the interplay between the different texts and the ancient Near Eastern motifs, a deeper understanding of the biblical author's intentions and theological messaging begins to emerge. In Babylonian thought, the chaos dragon needed to be defeated, and Marduk defeated the waters and the associated chaos dragon in order for life on earth to be created and sustained. This finally opens up the context for Psalm 74 and why the biblical authors use these chaos waters and dragon motifs. When we examine Psalm 74 within this broader context, the true intentions of the biblical authors become clear, particularly in relation to the utilization of kingship motifs. It becomes evident that the authors employ a polemic, which can be understood as a forceful critique or an attack, specifically targeting the beliefs and gods of rival nations. Essentially, they are challenging and undermining the false deities such as Baal or Marduk, by presenting Yahweh as the genuine dragon slayer and the one who vanquished the chaotic forces of the ocean to establish the world. The authors are asserting that it is Yahweh alone who deserves worship as the rightful king, not these rival gods. Yahweh is king alone. It is important to note that the Old Testament writers did not hold a literal belief in God engaging in a physical battle with a dragon to create the world. Instead, they're skillfully repurposing and subverting competing religious narratives to challenge the views of those who hold them. Through their writings, they're communicating a powerful message. It is Yahweh who conquers chaos, brings order to the universe, and will ultimately bring about a new world free from chaos. And this motif continues to resonate through the New Testament, and we will see more of this in the future. But for now, let's look at Revelation as an example. Revelation 21:1 reads, Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. The passage in question depicts the state of a post-eschatological eternity, referring to the ultimate culmination of all things. It is crucial to clarify that this verse does not imply the absence of large bodies of water in the redeemed earth. Rather, its message conveys the triumph of order over chaos and the complete defeat of all forces that oppose God. The emphasis is on the eradication of chaos itself, symbolized by the absence of the sea. This imagery signifies the ultimate victory of God's sovereignty and the establishment of a new world where disorder and opposition to God are completely eradicated. There are other places this motif shows up in the Bible, but this video is just to set up the stage for those ones. In conclusion, the ancient monster known as Leviathan, mentioned in various biblical passages, holds a deeper significance than initially meets the eye. Through a careful analysis of key texts, such as Psalm 74 and Job 41, as well as insights from Ugaritic and Babylonian literature, we can uncover the multifaceted portrayal of Leviathan and its connection to ancient Near Eastern mythologies. Rather than interpreting Leviathan as a literal creature from the animal kingdom, it is crucial to recognize the symbolic nature of these descriptions. The consistent use of imagery depicting Leviathan's fire-breathing abilities, its association with chaotic waters, and its connection to divine battles against the forces of chaos all point to its deeper symbolic meaning. By exploring the Ugaritic texts, which offer linguistic similarities to Biblical Hebrew, we gain valuable insights into the religious practices of the people of Ugarit and their beliefs surrounding the chaos dragon, Litanu. The parallels between the Ugaritic Litanu and the biblical Leviathan, along with overlapping titles and descriptions, provide compelling evidence for this connection. Furthermore, considering the Babylonian creation narrative, the Enuma Elish, and its account of Marduk's battle against the chaos dragon Tiamat, we can understand the significance of Leviathan in the biblical text. The defeat of the chaotic waters and the associated dragon by the deity signifies the establishment of order and the assertion of divine kingship. The biblical authors skillfully employ polemic language then, challenging the beliefs and gods of rival nations. They present Yahweh as the true dragon slayer and the rightful king who conquered chaos and created the world. This motif continues through the biblical narrative, emphasizing God's sovereignty over chaos and his redemptive plan. Understanding the symbolic nature of Leviathan in its cultural and theological context allows us to appreciate intricate layers of meaning within the biblical text. It sheds light on God's redemptive plan and, as we will see in later videos, helps Jesus emphasize his own divinity. By delving into the rich tapestry of information in the ancient Near East, we gain a deeper understanding of the biblical narrative and its profound message. In essence, Leviathan serves as a powerful symbol of God's triumph over chaos, the establishment of divine kingship, and the promise of a new world free from disorder. It invites us to explore the depths of biblical symbolism and uncover the profound truths embedded within these ancient texts. Hey, if you're watching this, that means you watched the video all the way through, and I am tremendously thankful for that. If you find value in the work that I'm doing, please remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification. And if you want to help me continue to make better videos and more videos in the future, please consider becoming a patron and joining me in this ministry mission. Until next time.